This is Floss Weekly, episode 867, recorded Tuesday, March the 24th. Pangolin. People can lie. Hey folks, it's time for Floss Weekly. That's the show about free, libre, and open source software. I'm your host, Jonathan Bennett, and today we're going to talk, well, a little bit of IoT. We're going to talk security. We're going to talk about something that claims to be a replacement for a VPN, among other things. We're going to talk Pangolin, the open source solution for connectivity and updates and all sorts of other things. I am not the expert on this. I don't know a whole lot about it yet, but I've got the guy. I know a guy, and I've got the guy here. We've got Milo Schwartz, and he is the co-founder of a company called FLOSS, and also behind Pangolin, software engineer by trade. He's done IoT and OT. I'm not sure what OT means in this instance. Anyway, we've got Milo here. Let's bring him on the show. Hey, welcome.
Hi, Jonathan. How's it going?
Hey, it's great. It's good to have you here. Okay, so first off, I know what IoT, the Internet of Things, is. What's the OT sector?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's operational technologies, right?
Okay.
So IT is informational technologies, OT is operational technologies. And that tends to mean there's some physical thing out in the world, like maybe it's a camera, right? And you're connecting to it and then providing digital services on top of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us the story, starting, I guess, with Fossorial. Well, how did all of this come to be? What is this that came to be that we're talking about?
Okay. So it all started without a name, right? I think most projects that start as a hobby, right? Like the name is the last thing you're worried about. Like,
right.
Let me build the thing first, let me get it out there.
Or you pick the name first and you realize 5 years later that it was a terrible choice, but you're stuck with it.
Exactly. That hurts a little.
That hits a little close to home. Yes, I know.
Anyway, so I actually started this project, this tunneling project, about a little over a year ago at this point, like maybe a year and a half ago, fall of 2024. I was just kind of looking at open source projects to build in the connectivity space, and with Pangolin, we were like trying to find names, right? We wanted to. The one thing you do is you try to find a domain, right? What domain can I get that has a nice TLD, like a .com or a .net?
Right.
And there are very few like nouns available, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were looking at just like what different what's affordable, and then what can we use that gives us a nice space of names to name all of our products, because we wanted to be able to say, okay, this is the company name, and then the product name is XYZ. And fossorial is a classification of animals. It's any animal that tunnels is a fossorial animal.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that's really, I like that. That's really clever. And you've also got the FLOSS as the beginning that everybody's going to recognize.
Exactly.
Nice.
It kind of was too good to be true. And the domain was like 2K, so it was within reach, if we started to make some money from the project. So we were just like, let's do it. And it allowed us to pick cool names like Pangolin or Newt or Olm, which are all different types of fossorial animals for our products.
I like it. I've been told that whenever you go to name an open source company in general, but open source company, open source project, when you think you've got your name picked, what you need to do is go punch that into Google and make sure that you're going to be able to get your hit in like the top 3 results. And so I interviewed one time a group that Scarf was the name of their project, I think. And it was super cool. It was like, build your own API, I think is what it was. But I went to Google for them and I could not find their project because, Scarf, Temu and Amazon and Walmart and Target, like you get all of those results instead. It's like, no, Scarf programming. And then you start getting results. Here's how you build a machine that you programmed that'll knit you a scarf. It's like, I didn't want that either. So go do the research. Make sure you can take over one of those top spots on Google.
Well, you were talking about regretting the name later. I think that's our biggest regret is Pangolin. You get all sorts of cute pictures of pangolins that come up, right? Even there's a documentary that came out around the same time we launched the project that dominated And actually, in COVID too, there was the whole Pangolin COVID controversy.
Hmm.
So that tends to bury us, but we're working our way up the SEO ladder at the moment.
Yes. Did Ubuntu use pangolin as their animal for one of their releases too?
Yeah, there's that. There's the Ubuntu Pangolin. There's also, I think, System 76 has a laptop codenamed Pangolin. So
Oh,
it pops up a lot.
yeah, yeah. Goodness. Okay, so is pangolin at this point kind of the flagship product that you guys have?
Yes, yeah, Penguin's the flagship product. We actually, our domain now, I mentioned fossorial.com. We do own that, but everything now goes to pangolin.net
Okay,
as the main domain.
got
Yeah.
it. Trying to get that SEO juice. So what
Yes.
you mentioned tunneling, and this is something I've done a lot over the years in various ways. Let's start with this. What's the problem that you needed to solve? Why did none of
Yeah.
the other solutions for tunneling work? And then what was the sort of differentiator with Pangolin?
Yeah. So yeah, there's a bunch of ways to tunnel. We started as an open source Cloudflare tunnels alternative. So
Okay.
what the type of Cloudflare tunneling is it's outbound only tunneling. So it's not peer to peer
Mm,
necessarily. And where this was born out of was my background in the IoT space, which I don't know if you wanted to get into that now, but
okay.
it's yeah, we basically, in the IoT space, there's you put these devices oftentimes behind cellular networks, and
Hmm.
they're behind CGNAT. And the big thing there is how do you expose something when you're behind a network that you don't control the firewall, and you just need to get access to some web panel for remote management, remote control, remote troubleshooting, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
So there really aren't any good, well packaged, like open source um, reverse tunneling, reverse proxy tunneling solutions out there that have a nice little binary and then do forward auth and let you manage your different sites. So we had looked for things to use at our former company, the IoT company before starting Pangolin, and Pangolin was kind of the thing we wish we had at that time. So that's what we started working on that as a hobby project and then and pushed it out. Um, yeah, that's kind of the high level, like what bred the or what
Hmm.
was the need, and then what led us to building it.
That I will just say quickly that is a great way to pick a project and to even to start a
Yeah,
business is to ask yourself, like, what thing do I really wish existed? What would make my life easier, and can I build that? And if the answer is yes, go do it, make money.
yeah, yeah.
um,
Well, and I'll be clear, like there is not a new idea. I mean, there is ngrok, there's FRP, right? Like
sure.
there's things that do this. The big one for us was the packaging. We wanted a simple like binary or simple container that you could just chuck anywhere, right? And then
Hmm.
have visibility into that network, and then be able to define resources on that network to then both do Cloudflare tunneling, and then later, which we can get into, now we do peer-to-peer tunneling, so more
Okay.
of a traditional VPN.
Yeah, if I were to try to solve this problem right now without thinking about Pangolin, I would reach for something like Wireguard or even OpenVPN. I've used OpenVPN in the past. What's
Yes.
sort of the differentiation there?
Yeah, so Penguin's built on Wireguard. So
Ah, okay.
yeah,
Very cool.
yeah, it's not smart to reinvent an excellent tunneling protocol and encryption protocol.
Mhm.
It's not. Why not do it, right?
So when oh, I can't remember his name. We've interviewed him too. The dev behind WireGuard. Anyway,
Jason.
yeah, Jason, that's right. He talks about and in some of the docs they talk about that WireGuard does this one thing very, very well. But if you want to do, and then they've got this like DHCP over WireGuard or
Hmm.
all of your configuration stuff. It's like you need some other service on top of it. And so is that sort of where Pangolin fits in. It is the other service that gives you all of that configuration and automatic deployment stuff.
Yeah, it's one of them. Yeah, I mean, I think there's all sorts of projects built on WireGuard these days. I mean, famously,
Yes.
Tailscale dominates the mesh networking
Hmm.
space at the moment. I believe Cloudflare even uses WireGuard
Would imagine so, yeah.
for some of their internal tunneling. We used to use it at our former company for also like getting into devices, but yeah, the big thing with WireGuard is it's very low level, right? You have
Hmm.
to manage keys, you have to manage um, uh, it's not based on users. If you wanted to
Right.
like bring on a new contractor to help you with something, you would have to generate new keys for them,
You
send
have
it
to
to them, then
SSH into
remember
the
to revoke
server and
them.
run the script and generate the keys. Yeah, it's a
Right.
pain. I understand. Been there, done
Yeah, yeah, and
that.
I've also set up countless like you spin up a new cloud environment, VPC or something, and you got first thing you deploy is you deploy WireGuard, tell them to get in there.
Yo,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so let's see. We've got this problem space. What was the what's sort of the you built it on top of WireGuard. What is the interface like? What's the actual step through process look like to actually use
Sure.
Pangolin?
Yeah, yeah. So we try to sort of break things down outside. We try to abstract the network, right? The whole part of the whole inspiration for Pangolin was people these days are thinking about applications. They're not thinking about and identities. They're not thinking about IPs. They're not thinking about overlapping subnets, etc. So we wanted to boil access controls down to sites, which are like these are your physical networks
Mm-hmm.
or virtual networks, even if it's like a VPC. And then also resources and users. So resources are the applications, the things you want to get access to, and users are the people, right? Your personnel that need to get access to those resources. So in terms of step-by-step process, it's quite simple. You just deploy the site connector thing, which is we call Newt, just back to the naming scheme. Newt's a little salamander-looking creature.
Mm-hmm.
And then that gives you that entry point into the network, hence why it's called a connector. You define resources for things that they don't necessarily have to be on the actual location of the site itself. It doesn't have to be on the WireGuard peer. It could be in the address, just has to be in the addressable range of the peer.
Mm-hmm.
And you can then give your users access to those resources, and the users, when they can access to the web browser or they can connect in through a client. And it doesn't matter if you have 150 sites and locations. You could have 150 connectors out there with 10 resources on each of those locations, and the users will be able to access all of them at once without having to jump between sites.
Yeah, very cool. I've seen the need for this sort of thing firsthand. Actually, for a little while, I was playing around with the idea of building something similar to this, but then building a very small portable physical appliance. And the point here, the thought process here was one of the other hats that I've worn through the years of my career was a telephone service. And so there's been multiple times that I've rolled out to a hotel or what have you, and they've got a big Vidavi switch or whatever brand.
Right.
And the tech that I'm on the phone with at headquarters, he needs to be able to remote into it to fix something. And based on the fact that I'm there, something is broken. So the backup modem is unplugged, or somebody stopped paying for the POTS connection. Something has changed with the internet connection, and so they no longer have an IP address to dial directly in, and so they just want to be able to get some kind of connection into that phone system to be able to do their thing. And my thought process at the time was, it would be cool if I had just like this little router that it would, on one side, it would get an IP address from DHCP. WireGuard would connect it, go up, create the tunnel, and then on the other side, you would have sort of this managed connection that you could plug into the switch,
Yep.
and everything would come up, and they'd be able to jump in. Sounds like that's what you've done, except in software. Have you thought about making a hardware version of this?
Yes, we have thought about it. Yeah, so this comes back to the roots. So the IoT world, and the OT world, it's very popular for people to deploy edge devices, and there's this whole world of manufacturers. There's Teltonica, there's Advantech, the GLI Net's one that's a little bit less in the industrial space. But the whole idea is, let me just buy this device. I can plop it somewhere. All it needs is an internet connection, and I can get in and I can access things. So we have built a software. We built we like to think of it as a hardware agnostic version of what some of these providers provide, because they're like tied. Teltonica has a kind of a solution to this, but it's tied to their box. So we are considering hardware. I don't think it's our top priority at the moment because of the whole hardware agnostic thing, right? It's it's part of our edge at the moment, but it's certainly open to consideration, like selling a cheaper box, maybe like a Raspberry Pi that's sort of well packaged and then deployed, something that's not quite as expensive as some of these
Right.
hardened like edge devices that could be overkill for just simple access to a phone system.
Yeah. The deal with that, and this is what I ran into, was the chicken and egg problem, right? So like there's the there's the engineering requirements to make the thing. You got to put some money and some time and some effort into it, and you've got it. But then that's not any sales. You've got to also
Yeah,
have somebody on the other side that says, "Yes, yes, we like that idea. We will pay you money for it."
right.
And but to get that sort of commitment, sometimes you've got to have the device in hand that you can show them. So that was where I
Right.
got stuck, is trying to.
Yeah, hardware's hard.
Yes, that
Hardware is
is.
very hard. Yes, for that reason, you have to manage inventory. Things break. It just adds a lot more variables.
Yep.
I'm definitely much more of a software guy. At the again former company, mainly doing software. There's someone else doing the hardware. But I like seeing how they can marry.
Absolutely.
It's more exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Um, so you've got a note here about NAT traversal and corporate firewalls, which this is something that I also have fought with multiple times over the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen that are corporations starting to try to block WireGuard? Is that something you're running into?
Actually, yes. There is a bit of that. Not necessarily blocking WireGuard, but blocking just very hard NATs where they're doing maybe port randomization, or they are blocking all like or UDP traffic, which obviously makes it very hard to handle the tunneling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was something that another project that I was involved in years ago was a port knocker. It was FWNOP, that's how we said it, or FWACNOP.
Yeah.
It was a port knocker that actually used real encryption and authentication inside of it rather than just the list of ports. But that was
Right.
something we ran into, is that we were going to send outgoing UDP packets, and all of these corporate firewalls would block them, and it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
a downer, isn't it? You guys, and I'm afraid that at some point the corporate guys are going to realize that WireGuard exists and that it is a potential avenue for exfiltration, which that's something that those guys you have to, once you get into like a certain level of business, or working with a certain type of data, you're required to care about this, right? So um, it's
Right.
not entirely a ridiculous concern, but they care a lot about things like exfiltration. They don't want a disgruntled employee or a spy or what have you to be able to send data off the network. And my fear is that at some point, these corporate guys are going to realize that WireGuard exists, and they're going to start looking for it and blocking it.
Yeah. I don't doubt it. I mean, I know many public Wi-Fi networks, like famously schools, will block VPN connections because they want to track and block
Hmm.
internally, and a VPN is a way to circumvent that. But it's a different type of VPN. That's more of a NordVPN or PIA that they're going after, and less of a remote access.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
but I mean, the packets kind of all look the same.
exactly right. Yeah, and there's ways to get around it. I mean, so there's on like the NordVPN side, there's ways to wrap packets in like an SSL wrapper, so that way it appears to just be normal web traffic,
Hmm.
or proxy it through some SOC server, and then it also appears to be web traffic. And I think those are pretty successful, because at a certain point, the firewall has to make a guess, right? And it's, I
Hmm.
guess, how lenient do you want to be on that guess?
I'm trying to remember. I've done some reading about technology developed for like the Chinese Great Firewall. People
Yeah.
trying to tunnel either just VPNs, or in some cases they were trying to tunnel Tor through it. And some really interesting technologies people have come up with, like hiding Tor traffic inside of telephony, like VoIP calls.
Yeah.
One in particular, like you would create a Skype call at first, and then you would exchange the internal traffic to be, instead of Skype, it would now be Tor. Have you guys sort of borrowed any ideas from the stuff going on there?
Not really. So, in terms of natural versal, I'll go back to the original
Sure.
question. We're mostly doing port hole punching. So the classic, it's what, again, Tailscale does this.
Hmm.
Zero Tier does this without WireGuard. But you fire packets from both directions, both the site and the user's client, out to a central coordination server. You just fire a big stream of just random UDP packets. Basically, you look at the two ports that were opened on the two NATs, and then you point them at each other to do that peer-to-peer connect. So that's in terms of NAT traversal. That's really the extent that we go there.
Is that like a stun really server like you would see in SIP? So essentially what that is?
It's very similar. It's actually, so it's we did not follow the stun protocol because we thought we wanted to be special. So
you said it, not me.
Yeah. No, we thought it would be more fun and just a little painful to develop our own. So we have our own protocol, but effectively, if you understand stun, you understand turn, it basically works the exact same way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably some advantage to not being identifiable as a stun server and doing turn.
Right.
But that's interesting.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt, but there's also the outbound tunnels. So the peer-to-peer thing makes a lot of sense for a VPN connection where the person's running a client to be able to connect in. But when in situations where you aren't able to run a client and you just have a web browser, then that's where the reverse proxy comes in because you could just establish an outbound only tunnel from the site connector to that coordination server in the cloud. All traffic will hit the coordination server basically as a front door or a gateway, and then go down. If it's allowed traffic, it will go down the right tunnel to the right network.
Yeah, very cool. And so you guys, you mentioned this briefly, but you have like the idea of sites and resources to where you can have one device sitting on a network somewhere, but then you have sort of a little cloud of IPs around it that are accessible?
Yeah, basically. So I guess another difference between Pangolin and Wireguard is, Wireguard's all based on peers. So you get access to the peer and what's on the peer, unless you set up proper routing. So what we've done to sort of flatten the network is we've added a proxy in front, or I guess at the end of the Wireguard tunnel.
Okay.
So traffic can come out of the Wireguard tunnel, and then it gets proxied out to another destination. So this is built into our new connector. And what that lets you do is, yes, you can define different resources in the addressable range of the connector that you can then get to. And you can actually refer to them, or your users can connect to them via the familiar LAN addresses when connected into the network, even if they're on overlapping or completely different physical networks, which is a difference between us and something like again, a Tailscale or traditional WireGuard, where you would just be addressing nodes within a network.
The other advantage, I would think, is that if you just set this up with WireGuard and the routing, then you can get to all of the ports. And it sounds like you guys, you give some administrative control to say, you get to talk to port 443 of this device, and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah. So you define a resource and you say exactly which ports are available on this resource. You could block all TCP, block all UDP, give a range, etc. And then you set users and roles on that resource. And yeah, of course you can do this you could throw a WireGuard server somewhere and you get access to everything on that network. But you can't be connected to multiple at the same time easily. Traditionally, it's either you pick a site and that's your entry point. So Pangolin lets you sort of link together different networks in a way.
Yeah, very cool. So you guys, you needed this tool, you built this tool, you decided to open source the tool. What did that conversation, what did that decision look like to open source it? Was that just always the plan, or was there at some point you had this business discussion like, this makes more sense if we release it under the GPL or the MIT or whatever?
I think business came second or third or fourth. I don't even know. It didn't come first. So I always wanted to run an open source project because of just being involved in this space for a long time. I mean, most of my hobbies have tied back to the home lab in some way. I think like many people in this community. So I was deploying servers and deploying image, all the good stuff that you would expect, Nextcloud. And I saw I kind of looked up to some of these maintainers as like role models a little bit, and was like, I wanted to be one of them. I also liked the idea of actually having people use my software. again, coming from that other company, we were selling to a very select group of people. So we made money, but on very few people. So it was just less gratifying.
Yeah.
You get less feedback. So we wanted, knowing all of that, we wanted to create our own open source project. We wanted it to grow naturally, which is the ideal scenario. People share it word of mouth. You get all sorts of people from all over the place using it, and that all feeds back into the project. The community can basically pull it up into a place where it's beneficial to everyone and gives you ideas, right, for free. Right? I mean, people get very passionate about open source software.
Definitely, yes.
So, that was the arc. I mean, it was the intention from the beginning was to open source it, and we launched it on Reddit. Sorry.
Okay, so you said you'd always dreamed of being a maintainer. You always wanted to have an open source project. You always wanted to have a lot of users that were using it. Now that you have those things, do you regret it?
I don't regret it.
For those that have not been in this position, there are downsides to being the guy at the top of an open source project and having users that will sometimes ask for ridiculous things and get mad at you for no reason. And like there are it's not all sunshine and roses. There are some thorns with running an open source project.
Yes, no, it's open source. What I like to say, it's a very, very sharp double-edged sword.
Yes.
It's a double-edged sword. People are very opinionated about software, and they are, they want to share it, right? So I think the biggest problem is simply just managing so much conversation. It becomes like a community management problem, right? Once you get to a certain scale.
Yep.
How do you triage issues? Like, how do you manage support threads? Where do you manage support threads? How do you block spammers who are like coming in and trying to take advantage of people? Like now the founding team can't manage all the support. Do we need to pay someone for support? Like there's so many things there that make open source very hard once you reach a certain scale.
Yeah, absolutely. How about the pull request side of things? Are you guys being inundated with slot pull requests like everybody else?
Yes.
What?
Unfortunately.
What have you done about that? Do you have a solution yet, or are you still wading through it like the rest of us?
We're wading through it. So we make people disclose, but there's people can lie, right? It's an honor system.
People can lie. Show title right there. People can lie.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have a disclosure on the pull request, and all that really ends up doing is it makes us just be a heck of a lot more skeptical when looking at it.
Yeah.
But we still have to scan for it ourselves. We try to write a big sort of contributors guide that includes best practices and even areas in the code to look where if someone were to vibe code, they could probably just take that document and it would be a good source of context, right, for the LLM, which would improve to a small degree maybe the types of pull requests we get. Yeah. But ultimately, we still have to search for security errors. The big one for us is making sure the LLMs stick to UX UI patterns that we follow, because they like to kind of go off on their own and like create their own components and ways of doing things, but that's not good user experience. And our whole like thing is user experience. So answer the question.
Yeah, very good. I pulled up the Pangolin GitHub repo here, and I see you've actually got a couple of licenses, and I was curious about this. At the very least, I see the GNU AGPL, the Affero General Public License. But I also see that some files are also the Fossorial Commercial License. How do those two play and interact together?
Yeah, so as a business, you need to make money, right? So there's a few ways you can do that. You have to sell something that is valuable to people. So at some point, we decided we had to create features that are considered paid features, right? And these are licensed, not very GPL. However, we were very careful about this because this is a very touchy subject for the open source community, as I'm aware. So We did two things. One, the open source, we build two versions of the application. One is fully built and distributed as AGPL3, so all the proprietary code is stripped out
Okay.
before it's distributed. And two, the part that is licensed under the Enterprise Edition is free for anyone using it for personal use and for non-commercial use under a certain threshold, because we wanted to make it as accessible as possible to people. And so far, I think this has been working pretty well. It enables access to everyone. The people who are need it to be licensed a certain way for distribution under certain open source restrictions can use the EGPL version, and people who either don't care, want the extra features, and are hobbyists and home labbers like I was when I started can get access for free. And then the businesses who are getting real value out of the product can pay us a little bit of money, right? So we can fund development and fund all that support that I mentioned earlier.
Yes. No, I am very sympathetic to that. Somebody's got to pay some money because the programmers have to be able to eat and pay their rent. I'm right there with you. I totally get that. Have you found that? Let me back up a little bit. One of the real concerns that open source projects have had, and I think this has sort of died down some, but there for a while it was the big deal, was a company like Amazon coming along and selling your product, selling the exact same services that you're selling for half the cost because they're Amazon and they can. So that had to be like one of the things that you were thinking about. But have you found, as I have, that the AGPL is just terrifyingly effective at keeping someone like Amazon away?
Yes, I think so. I think I saw the whole Redis famously. That's the one that kind of shook us. Or even WordPress, I think, is having all sorts of issues at the moment.
WordPress is kind of fighting between a couple of the WordPress company itself and then WP Engine is the name of the other group. I've not looked up and seen where that is recently, but it is kind of the same deal, right? It's an outside company offering some of the same services and competing against the guys that run the open source project.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what the licensing model for WordPress is? Is it license they use?
I think the core is all open source, and then they make most of their money by selling hosted services, I think. I don't know all of the details, but I know that's at least part of it.
Yeah, I think AGPL is quite effective at doing this. It's one of the more restrictive licenses, that's for sure. It prevents, it's copyleft, of course, if you modify the source code and then you incorporate it in your product, or even if you access stuff over a network. That's the big one with AGPL and interact with the software.
Right. It closes the what do they call it? The cloud loophole, the web loophole of the GPL. Yes. Yeah. So we should clear off the spot real quick and explain this. So like the GPL says that when you have something licensed under the GPL and you give that binary to someone else, that person has the right to come to you and say, I want the source code that goes with the binary. Well, when you're providing a service on a server up in the cloud, you're not actually giving the binary to someone. You're just giving them the service. And so the GPL doesn't have the same teeth in that case. A user, I use Gmail. I know that Gmail has a bunch of GPL code in it, but I can't go to Google and say, hey, give me all of your Gmail code. They will laugh at me because it's GPL, but the way it's written, I don't have a binary, so I don't have that right. The AGPL was the solution for that, and it was written by the same folks as the GPL. It's from the GNU. It's from the Free Software Foundation. And it basically says, not only do you have the right to get that source code if you're given a binary, you essentially have that right to get the source code if you are a user of a service running this code. And so it does exactly this. If some part of Gmail was licensed under the AGPL, I could then absolutely do that. I could write to Google and say, hey, I am a user of your service under the AGPL. Please send me a copy of all of your source code. And the license would require to do that. And because of that, Google and Amazon and all of those big cloud companies have very, very strict regulations that no one in their company is to touch AGPL code. Like don't even look at it for too long. I imagine in their programming cubicles, they must have like the little eye wash stations. Like if you look at ATPL code for too long, come run to the eye wash station and wash your eyeballs out. It's almost that serious. Because man, it would poison all of their stuff in the way that it's intended to, right? And so that's just sort of the tension between the two. And so what a lot of companies have done is very similar to what you're doing. You have either a tiered approach with code, or you have a dual license with a CLA, so that your open source that you're giving out to everyone, you can run with AGPL and nobody cares. It's fine. But if it's Amazon, well, they got to pay you the big bucks to be able to do it, which works out pretty well. I mean, like it's a fairly ideal solution for everybody.
Yeah, no, I think so. I recommend the approach to anyone. Of course, you need to do a license if you ever do want to do a commercial license, because if people contribute code, you have to, maintain the right kind of copyright over that to redistribute it. Yeah.
Do you guys have a contributor license agreement?
Yeah, we have a CLA. We were very careful from the beginning. You asked about open source. If that was our first intention, it was, but we always knew if this was going to become a company, that we needed to be transparent at the beginning, because we've seen all the problems of like changing licenses and making like people contribute their time and their code, and then you take the copyright away from them, because technically they own that when they contribute. So we even though the commercial side wasn't figured out at the beginning, we added a CLA just in case, and there's pros and cons to that. I mean, obviously it protects the maintainers and the project, but it also means you get less contributions, because some people don't want to contribute if they have to sign a CLA.
Something else that we found, I don't know if you guys have found this, some people legally cannot contribute with the CLA because they have signed an agreement with their company that all of that code, the hobbyist or whatever, belongs to the upstream company. And so we've got some guys from a U.S. company that would love to be able to contribute code to the one of the projects I'm involved in, but we too have a CLA. For somewhat similar reasons. Ours is more, I forget the name of it. It's not so much about commercial use, but it's more about being able to fix a problem if there's ever an issue found with the license. But anyway, we've had a couple of people that says, I've been talking to legal for months about this, and we still can't figure out if I'm able to write this code. Sorry.
I think that's the big downside for sure. Is just concerns. I mean, you mentioned it both on Google, right? They won't touch any AGPL software.
Yeah.
I think it's fortunately, I think there's it matters more for dependencies of software, right? Something like a library that you're going to integrate into your code,
right?
And a little bit less for fully packaged ecosystems, which I think we fall a bit more into, because the software gets deployed standalone, and it's less interlinked with things. Which I think helps us a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I just one more comment on this, on the idea of CLA and the business use case. There's been some real blowback in communities when businesses have done this. They've taken something and they've either added a CLA or they've used a CLA to relicense code. But I think if a project is started from the beginning and it's made clear that, look, this is open source, but it's also going to be a business. We're going to have a CLA on it. This is why. This is what the CLA allows us to do. Like, most people get that. And particularly when it's stated from the beginning, I find most users are pretty open to that. They may not like it necessarily, but, they're not going to...
Right.
They're less likely to call you mean words on Reddit as a result.
Yeah, no, the name of, the whole name of the open source game is transparency. So... right, that's
part of it.
The whole idea: get access to the source code. So you need to be transparent on every front. And there's actually, another inspiration of ours, but we don't have the time these days to really go deep into this area. Is companies like GitLab or FleetDM, which have built this model around an open source company too, where all of their processes are fully available on their website. Even their sales processes, you can see how they go after clients and stuff. And as a customer, right, of a company like that, I think that's almost more important than sometimes seeing the source code, because you can see how they do things, how they operate their business, and do you trust them? Do you, for lack of a better word, vibe with that?
Yeah.
You know?
I will say that there are some business models where that just does not work.
Yeah, of course.
I've got an email sitting in my inbox right now that I'm a little scared of that is marked not for, do not distribute, do not blah blah blah. It's like I would not be able to do that at all with that particular contract. But
Yeah. No, I mean there's levels to it, of course,
Sure.
right? Like I think the big ones for me are roadmap, right? Roadmap is not necessarily doesn't need to be held super close to the heart.
Sure.
Make that public. Fleet DM, I really like how they do sprint. I think they do their sprint meetings, like their stand-up calls with the company. All of those are live streams so everyone can see. And I always thought that was super neat because usually that's internal. Like you have no insight into what the company's meetings look like. Obviously, you can't have a confidential meeting on the public internet. And I'm sure they're not. They're picking and choosing, but it makes you trust them more because
feel a little bit better about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does it look like to self-host Pangolin?
Yeah, so Pangolin started fully self-hosted. So open source, fully self-hosted. We didn't have a cloud. We had no idea how we were going to build a cloud. The system is very complicated, as you could imagine, with tunneling and relay servers and coordination servers. And when you're dealing with the reverse proxy, now there's like ways to sync certificates and ways to, you have to move DNS and all that type of stuff. Yeah. So the first version of Pangolin that is self-hosted was just a stack of 3 containers. There's the Pangolin container, which is the sort of business logic, all the Pangolin specific stuff. There's this other container called Gerbil, which is another animal name, another fossorial animal that handles all the tunneling. The idea there is that, gerbils, they move through like, if you ever go to like a PetSmart or a Petco and you see all the tubes.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the idea there because like Gerbil is building that whole network. And then finally, we use traffic under the hood as our reverse proxy. So it's actually handling the routing and certificate generation with Let's Encrypt and all that good stuff. So all that stuff gets deployed on a stack onto VPS, and boom, there's your simple self-hosted single Pangolin server. Okay. But then you can graduate up to what we call Pangolin clustering or multi-region deployments, depending on which one you fall into. This is where maybe you want high availability and fallback if one goes down, or you want to put a point of presence on the East Coast and a point of presence on the West Coast. And this is where it gets hard because if a tunnel disconnects, like from one of those points of presence, it connects to another one. Well, now DNS was pointing to the first point of presence, and how do you get it to the other one? And the same with the certificate. The certificate was being served from one POP, served from another one. And this is what Cloudflare does all day, every day with billions of dollars. All right. So we were trying to figure out how do we do it with like
thousands of dollars at best. Yes.
Right.
I understand.
So I think we came up with a pretty good solution. There's, a couple extra components you run. We have a DNS server. We have a certificate syncer. We could when the tunnels disconnect from one POP go to the other one, if DNS is still pointing to the first POP, we use like an SNI proxy to actually send like traffic over to the second POP, and then go back, like kind of goes out one POP and then into the next one. Huh. So that's all can be fully self-hosted. Obviously, I keep saying we also use this like in our cloud platform because we did eventually build a cloud platform, and that has to be like globally distributed and all that stuff that comes with the cloud platform.
So you guys were containers from the very beginning. You are, as they say, cloud native.
Exactly. Yes.
If somebody says, I don't like those dang containers, is there a way to host it? Is there a way to get it running without containers?
Technically, yes, but it might be kind of hard. Yeah. I don't think we have any official documentation on it, but I think you could reverse engineer it if you wanted to.
Yeah. Makes sense. That's funny.
Yeah, but we started Docker and graduated up, I think as many do, into like Kubernetes and the real men territory of cloud native.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I used to be that guy for a while. I was like, I don't like containers. Show me how to actually run the code. And then one day it's like, okay, fine, I'll give this container thing a try. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. I guess I'll use it.
Yeah. It's there's pros and cons for sure. I guess we haven't received many requests for it, so we haven't like put any real effort into documenting the process.
Can you scale it down all the way to run the Pangolin self-hosted on something like a Raspberry Pi?
Yeah, people are doing that for sure. Yeah, I mean, people. The way we started is, oh, you don't want to use Cloudflare tunnels, use Pangolin. How can I do it cheaply? Let me get a very cheap VPS, like 1 gig RAM, one or two vCPUs, right, and deploy it. That maps down to a small Raspberry Pi as well.
Yeah, that's the same. All right, so I've got a note here that you guys have 20,000 stars on your GitHub repository, which is a bunch.
Yes.
I am tempted to ask if they're all real or not, because there was some news stories about.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't remember who it was that, and this I'm not being serious here. There was a few projects that some investigation showed up that maybe some of those stars were paid for and clicked by bot accounts of some sort. But I'm not making that allegation, not at all. It was just an off the cuff joke. But that is a bunch. That's a lot of people that saw this and went, "Wow, that's really cool." What's it like to have that many fans, that many people, watchers in the community?
Yeah. Like I said before, there's a lot of people using the software, which makes us very excited. Like we've pushed bugs out by accident before, right? I think it's inevitable, and you're reminded by how many people use the software, because you get inundated with like people reporting the bug, right? Mm-hmm. So it just that many stars just brings scale. Stargazers are they're a bit of a vanity metric for sure, and all it really means is there's some projects that will get tons of stars and then disappear and not have any real usage. Mm-hmm. I feel like we've seen that a lot more recently with some of these viral like AI products.
Yep.
But I think generally, like on average, more stars correlates to more usage. So that's why it's like an important metric to see if a project has adoption, etc. Yeah. So no, we did not pay for stars, but unless you consider like, we've exclusively just posted on Reddit, posted on Hacker News, and r/self-hosted has been where we've pretty much gotten all the stars, and then people have shared it, among themselves, which I think leads to a network effect.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if I should start making that one of my standard questions. Have you paid for any of your stars on GitHub?
I wonder what the cost per star is.
I mean, it can't be much, but still. Interesting. So in part of your background, you actually mentioned doing IoT and OT stuff. You did traffic light infrastructure. And so I'm curious if the circle has been squared, does Pangolin do any traffic light connectivity now?
Not quite traffic lights yet.
Okay.
But the industry is very close. Like everyone's kind of doing the same thing that I used to do at this traffic company. Mm-hmm. I mentioned earlier, you deploy an edge device somewhere to control physical hardware. Right. And for traffic lights, every traffic cabinet has a traffic controller. These things were built in like the 80s and 90s. They're old pieces. They're older than me.
Right.
They're like these.
They're similar to some of the phone mainframes that I've worked on. Yes.
Right. Exactly. And they like all the traffic lights connect to the controllers, and the controllers then have a management panel that you use the edge device to get access to. So that's basically what I was doing at this other company, as well as many other things. But we don't have any current customers in the traffic industry, but we have lots of people, in industrials, right, where they're doing the same thing. There's a PLC or some sort of like, oil mining contraption, right, or like BMS, like building management systems, is another one where they're linking all these different pumps and like fans into a central sort of base station, and then getting access to it with an edge device. So it has all come, full circle, basically. I think part of the reason, it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you're part of an industry and then you build a product, it's very easy to sell, and make a value proposition to that other industry, because you know how to talk to them, you know what the pain points they experience are. The big pain point, right, that comes up a lot in these IoT fleets is provisioning, right? How do you provision these devices to contain our site connector or contain any other software, do it on a repeatable basis, and then actually push it out into the field and manage it. So there's management involved with that. And existing tunneling solutions like Tailscale are not really built for this in mind, right? So we have some extra pieces in there that make it very easy. Like a site just needs an ID and a secret, and then we have like a provisioning key which you can use to map to your devices, and then it will pull down ephemeral keys for the device at the point of provisioning as it comes off the conveyor belt, and they get pushed out into the field. So there's like little things like that we do to optimize that kind of bring us back into the OT or IoT, sometimes called IIoT, which is industrial IoT space.
Learning all kinds of acronyms today.
Yeah.
Is the traffic light industry and all of that, are they still doing like raw IP provisioning in some cases? This is something I've seen in the phone system world is, okay, well, here's your phone cabinet and just give it this public IP address. And oftentimes no firewall in front of it or anything. It's just like, I'm sure it'll be fine. It's not always fine.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, there's it's crazy. We've heard this from people using Pangolin in the building management space, but also my experience in the traffic space. There was all sorts of just open ports on public IP addresses. You could, if you were scanning, you could find traffic controllers and get to the front panel, and it's terrifying because all this industrial stuff, all this industrial hardware and software is super old stuff. So it's who knows what kind of vulnerabilities are in there that can be exploited. So part of the goal, the push right now in these industries is to close down ports, keep everything off the internet. And in fact, even sometimes let's not let people connect in like a VPN, because that extends actually extends the network boundary a little bit. Right, so they only want to do browser-based access. Just to keep it
yes, one of the most hilarious things that we used to do is, so when you're in, this is specific to a hotel, you would have your hotel management system, and then you'd have your phone system, and they would need to be able to talk to each other. But for similar security reasons, it couldn't be an IP connection, and so you would have two separate pieces of hardware. Each of them were IP to their respective board, and then in between the two, it was UART serial connections to get these two pieces of hardware to talk to each other for security reasons. It never ceased to amuse me whenever we set one of those up. Very, very similar idea. So does Pangolin sort of, it's a VPN under the hood, but with all of the admin stuff you have on top of it, does it sort of fulfill this need to not be a VPN?
Yeah. So the browser-based access is what really is really applicable to the industry. It gets them excited because, again, all these industrial systems are just running like a web panel. It's just a website you go to, usually on the local network. You go to an IP address, port, whatever, right? And you click around.
Hopefully not over the public internet.
Right. So
oftentimes it is, but
yeah, they would just open up that port and go to the web panel, right, from anywhere. But with Pangolin, they can just drop in the site connector. They can define the resources on that network. And then the browser-based access uses the outbound tunnel. So there's no client software you even have to run. Contractors don't have to install some new software on their computer that you then have to manage. They just go to their browser and can access the thing. And then it's also protected with a layer of authentication in front where you could give and grant temporary access as needed. Yeah.
I hadn't been thinking of this in terms of this, but I could actually really use this. I've got Linux servers that I admin remotely, and I have a held together with duct tape and bubblegum WireGuard install that maybe I should go and just replace with a self-hosted Pangolin. That would probably work.
Yeah, let us know. Do proof of concept.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a really interesting thought. One of my to-do lists is to see if I can go find an old WireGuard server and prop it back up because it's got keys on it that I otherwise don't have copies of. If I end up having to just redo that, I will probably take a look at Pangolin and just see if I can do it that way.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, if you have a mix of public and private resources, I think it could be a good mix.
Yeah.
Simple
Absolutely.
access is all what we're for.
Very cool. All right, we're getting close back to the bottom of the hour. Is there anything we didn't talk about that I didn't ask you about that I should have?
Oof, good question.
This one's hard to figure out. You got to do some set math in your head.
Yeah. I think we kind of covered most everything. Yeah, so I think that was good. It's pretty comprehensive.
Okay, I did just see something I want to ask you about, and this is not
Sure.
necessarily an open source thing, although it kind of is. You guys are part of Y Combinator.
Oh yeah. Yes.
How is that experience? And so this is sort of me taking off my Floss Weekly hat and
Yeah.
putting on my businessman hat. Although there's definitely overlap here. How has that been? How's that experience been? Has it worked out fairly well?
Yes, it has. So, well, and you're reminding me of this. Yes, this whole quote we didn't talk about. Like my co-founder is also my brother, so we can talk about that.
Oh, well, I'm sure that's
Yeah.
interesting sometimes.
Yeah. So, yeah, Y Combinator is a force. Like it's an institution. It's pretty
Absolutely.
big. Right now, it's I think we're in a weird spot. We were like the only non-AI company, right? In our batch.
Good for you guys.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
we're proud of ourselves for that.
Yes,
Yeah.
you should be.
We were the for most people we were the boring company.
I have
But
I have learned. I will let you. Sorry to cut you off, but man,
no, no
I've
worries.
learned in doing business that there is really something to be said for boring. Like
Yeah.
like you review a contract and the contract is boring. Man, that's a good thing. You have a meeting and the meeting is boring. Like you're doing something right if your meetings are somewhat boring. You want
Yes.
the anyway. That little money rant. Go ahead, continue on.
No, it's true. It's like all the big companies are often boring companies. If you cut out like the top three or four like massive companies right now, or even if you do like if you pick Nvidia, I mean the core Nvidia is just building these chips and like selling these chips. It's not exactly all that sexy.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, no, the Y Combinator experience was great. We actually we did it primarily because we wanted to quit our other jobs. So we were like, okay, what are our options? We could find a new job. We could just quit. We need to pay ourselves some money. So a quick thing to do is shoot your shot on Y Combinator, and,
Hmm.
and they'll give you some investment to build a business.
Yeah.
And we applied and got in. I think they liked, that we had a ton of adoption, right? Because that's a metric of do you have something that people want, which is the whole pitch with Y Combinator is can you build something that people actually want?
Hmm.
And I think we did that. So um, that was last summer. That was summer 2025. Actually, just had our reunion. They do reunions every now and then with the batchmates.
Okay.
So that was this past weekend actually. So it's
Nice.
funny timing.
One of the things that we sometimes see in on Floss Weekly and where I do some other coverage of like the Linux and open source space is that sometimes venture capital is just toxic to open source
Yeah.
projects. I guess Y Combinator is technically VC, but
Yes.
it seems like you've had a very different experience than some of the other VC horror stories.
Yeah, no, you have to pick and choose who you get into bed with, 100%. You don't want to,
It's true.
yeah, you don't want to be dealing with the wrong venture capitalists. So Y Combinator is because they're so big, they fund all sorts of stuff, right?
Mhm.
And they're very hands off.
Okay.
They funded GitLab, right? Massive open source company. Docker came out of Y Combinator.
Yeah.
So it can be controversial, but at the end of the day, it comes down to I think the founders and the roots of the founders. Are they going to stick to the ethos of what started the company? I think GitLab has done that very well, in my
Mhm.
opinion. They're a they're a public company, right? They've taken on tons of venture capital,
Yeah.
but they're able to provide both a really good enterprise suite of products that are paid and free open source software that anyone can deploy and self-host.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's just I think you just have to. It's like dodging a minefield in venture capital.
Yeah.
You just don't want to take money from the wrong person.
Yeah. Do you feel like you guys have turned the corner and turned it into a profitable business?
Not yet. No, I mean we're still not profitable. We're focused on growth at the moment. It's still more adoption, but we have I think the seeds that are leading to we'll be profitable probably sometime next year.
Oh, good.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, no,
that's excellent.
the
I'm super glad to hear that.
human sorry human cost is very expensive, right? You have to
I am aware. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So
I've recently gone full time with I call it a startup. That's not entirely accurate, but that's the easiest way to describe it. I've recently gone full time with my startup. It's yes.
No, it's very, very expensive, especially if you hire more than just the founders, right? You can pay the founders less because you're taking on the risk. There's equity to be had, but when you hire someone, they are taking on sometimes even more risk because
they're taking on a different type of risk.
Yeah, like opportunity cost risk almost, right? They could be working somewhere else. So that's and part of the goal of raising venture capital is to hire more people up front so you can develop software as an investment in your later business. Mm-hmm. So what that means is high labor costs now to be able to sell more later. And that's kind of where we are at the moment.
Yeah, very cool. All right. I've got to ask you a couple of final questions before I let you go. I will get emails complaining if I forget this. What is your personal favorite text editor and scripting language? It's a long-standing tradition of the show. I got to ask.
So text editor and scripting language.
Yeah.
Okay. So NeoVim.
Okay.
As the text editor. Yeah.
Very good.
NeoVim, I switched to that 2 or 3 years ago from VS Code. I tried Zed for a bit.
Okay.
Have you used Zed?
I've not, but I'm aware of it. I don't know what it is.
Okay. Yeah. It's like VS Code, but runs on a game engine kind of. So it runs at high refresh rate. It's a very nerdy thing to like, but I know NeoVim is my go-to. And then scripting language, it's hard. It's a hard choice between, I would say Go. Probably Go is like my favorite overall language, but it's not great for scripting. Like, Bash is what I think more of a scripting language,
sure.
But I wouldn't say, I'm not really super fluent in Bash. Python's also a great scripting language. I'm pretty fluent in that, but I like to pick up Go where possible.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
The answer to that question used to be, either VI or Emacs. And then on the scripting language side, it was pretty much either Perl or Bash way back in the day. And this show has roots far enough back in the day that we've gotten a lot of those answers. And one of the things that I find fascinating is to see how people's answers have changed over time. We'll even have some people on the show that we've had on years ago. Like in some cases, somebody we had on a decade ago. And, they used to be a big Emacs fan, and now they're like, I pretty much use VS Code all the time.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Well, sometimes it's like that curve, right? Where you're like on one end, you're using like VS Code, and then you're in the middle and you're trying like Zed and all these different projects, and you just go back to VS Code because it's like the best overall
it's the one that works.
Solution, least amount of headaches kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Time is a flat circle, man.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. It has been a blast to get to talk with Milo and talk about Pangolin and Fossorial, the IoT, OT, and just all kinds of fun stuff. A lot of stuff from my background and things I'm working on now, too. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We do plan on having a show next week. I don't think we have a guest scheduled yet, although I've got some business cards from Embedded World I'm going to start sending emails out to hopefully later today. So plan on being back next week. If you run a project or you know somebody that does, let us know so that we can give them an interview. floss@hackaday.com, or come jump into the Discord. Let us know. Get us in touch. We will get you on the schedule and chat about your project. If you want to find more of me, there is, of course, the Untitled Linux Show over at Twit, and you can come check out what we're doing at Meshtastic. Other than that, thank you. Appreciate everybody that watches and listens, whether you get us live or on the download, and we'll be back next week on Floss Weekly.